Rand, I need another episode of Fully Cinematic.
You enjoy a nice pastry, don't you? Do you like throwing back a few from time to time? Well, the geniuses behind the new streaming release figured combining the two would not only increase your chances of developing diabetes, but that it would also make for an irresistible film premise. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but can you judge a movie by its title? The studio who brought you My Spy, Gringo, and Bliss had better hope not, because this sounds like some bull. So call your most body-positive designated driver, fill your Ozempic prescription, and come along with me for a long night of sitting in bars with cake. And oh yeah, there will be spoilers. After her best friend Corinne Thompson wins a cherry stem tying contest, and she herself bores the gathered crowd with tips on perfecting popovers, baker extraordinaire Jane heads home alone to whip up a layer cake for Corinne instead of studying for the LSATs. The following day at the record label for which they both work, Jane in the mailroom, she's caught by her office crush Owen snooping around his desk. That evening at a local watering hole, Corinne sings atop the bar as Jane discusses the birthday cake she made for the former and her sour cream innovation with a stranger. After it's sliced and distributed, the crowd goes wild. At home, the birthday girl suggests that the introverted Jane regularly bring homemade cakes to bars as an icebreaker in order to meet dudes, and utters the movie's title. After recruiting a gaggle of their female neighbors, the stereotypically odd couple devises a plan complete with a police procedural-style map of Los Angeles designating targeted bars. The first venue is busy and its patrons completely uninterested in the duo, but the offloading passengers of a tour bus out front are completely game. At lunch with Jane's parents, both attorneys, at an Asian cuisine restaurant, Jane's law future is the topic of discussion. At the next location, a dive bar, Jane shares her spiced rum confection with a one-eyed bartender who loves it but suggests she make cupcakes, which aren't exactly her cup of tea. When he texts the following day after promising to send a recipe tip, what she actually gets is a pig. Jane line dances at a honky-tonk bar at the next hop. At work, Corinne is promoted to junior agent, but her boyfriend, Dave, is a no-show for her celebration outing. Corinne is rushed to the hospital after a seizure where tests reveal a malignant brain tumor. Following her release, the girls hit a buffet restaurant with Corinne's parents, who've flown in from Phoenix. When they attempt to talk her into returning home with them, Jane insists that she can take care of her friend. As a compromise, Fred and Ruth move in temporarily. Meanwhile, the cake plan resumes with a pina colada treat at a luau joint. The following day, the girls, tired of their new roommates, assure them that they can handle Corinne's treatment on their own. The deadpan Ruth makes and refrigerates a near infinite supply of lasagna and leaves the pair with a bag of cherry-flavored weed, promising to return in the fall. Upon Corinne's suggestion, Jane bakes it into a CBD and THC cake, which they take to an island-themed bar. The dessert takes quite a toll on Jane, who smears cake on the guy who calls Corinne up, for no apparent reason other than the fact that the filmmakers wanted to include a toxic masculinity character. Jane finally meets and makes out with a dude, a dancer's brother, Sam, at what may or may not be a strip club. At work, she invites Owen, who's in the legal department, out for a drink in order to discuss copyright law. They hit it off, but he sees through her rules, leading to a slobber session in his whip. After a doctor's appointment, Corinne tries to talk Jane into buying lingerie on the street, and the exchange devolves into a fight on a public sidewalk. Corinne's in denial about the severity of her condition, and Jane resents her lackadaisical attitude towards her treatment. Next up, carrot cake with cardamom and maple at a roller rink costume party. While Owen and Jane grow closer, Dave and Corinne have a loud breakup. During a heart-to-heart, Jane admits that she doesn't want to go to law school, which Corinne and the audience already know. Though Jane protests, citing Corinne's health, the latter insists that the cake barring continues. The girls and their parents have dinner together, during which Corinne wears a pink wig and Jane wears a blue one in solidarity. Corinne announces that Jane doesn't want to join the family profession, a revelation that the latter predictably downplays. Following the benefit for Corinne in the park, she has an emotional breakdown. As her condition deteriorates, exemplified by sudden memory loss, Jane takes her to the hospital. Tests reveal that the tumor is spread and is still inoperable. The oncologist divulges that her facility has done all it can and provides a list of alternatives. Needing a release, Jane solicits Owen for some vitamin D. Subsequently, Fred and Jane have a heart-to-heart before visiting a pottery studio together, and after painting their creations, they smash them on the sidewalk out front. Back at home, Jane takes down the serial killer map, after which Corinne talks her into going out for fries. The following morning, Corinne has another seizure and is admitted to Hollywood Hospital, where Ruth and Jane bond while discussing her chances of being accepted into a clinical trial. Dave shows up with flowers but can't bring himself to enter the building. Right on brand, Jane makes a pumpkin pie cake and vows to Corinne to complete the list of proposed 50 cakes. But she'll bring the remainder to the hospital instead of cake barring. During a makeup party with Corinne, Jane admits that although things are going well, she's not sure if she wants to continue seeing Owen or not. In other words, she has been and will continue to waste his time. Back at home, she breaks the news to her parents over Zoom that she's decided against going to law school. Fred and Ruthie sing karaoke as Jane finally tells Owen about the cake scheme. Corinne subsequently sings the first verse of Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go before Jane joins in, which she refused to do at Corinne's birthday bash. On Jane's last day at work, she breaks up with Owen so that she can figure things out. Of course. And she clearly used Owen for his body at least once. Although she's giddy when he inadvertently calls her outgoing, as it's the first time she's been described as such. At the beach, Jane gives her bestie a comforting hug when she breaks down in tears. On Corinne's deathbed, Jane confesses that she never wanted to move to LA, but did so because she'd have followed her anywhere. When Corinne weakly threatens to haunt her, Jane promises to live a full life worth haunting. As she prepares breakfast, Fred informs Jane that his daughter died. Later, as she packs up in order to move out, Jane finds a note that Corinne left, bequeathing her underwear to her. Subsequently, everyone, including Benita, gathers for Jane's memorial. Afterwards, Jan hand-delivers cake number 50, Corinne's favorite, chocolate, to the Mucha Lucha bar. A year later, she delivers cake to a local hospital before we learn that she now owns the Silver Lake Cake Shop. Bette Midler's regrettable inclusion in the cast as Benita is likely an allusion to Beaches, which is a cinematic inspiration for Counting Blue Cars, or whatever. The literary inspiration is the autobiographical cookbook of the same name by Audrey Schulman, who lived the story, beginning in 2013. Midler brings absolutely nothing else to the film. The performances are impressive, and headliner Yara Shahidi, who just so happens to be legendary rapper Nas's cousin, at 23 is already a 16-year Hollywood veteran. She made a standout Tinkerbell in the otherwise disappointing 2023 Peter Pan remake, by the way. But the presentation of the story itself leaves a lot to be desired, and it is more predictable than a network rerun. It becomes painfully clear pretty early on how the story will end. If you really want to see an emotional story about an LA-based cook, skip this trash and check out Chef instead. And if you're dead set on watching a movie about a white woman battling cancer, check out August Osage County. In other news, it's time to highlight a comment from a previous episode. In response to my review of Return of the Jedi, Lloyd Shanahan 154 said, "That story meeting with Gary Kurtz never happened. He left Lucasfilm months before the story meetings even started because he was causing problems with Empire's production and was afraid of getting caught. George wasn't even certain if Han was going to be in Episode 6 because Han's actor had developed a dislike for Star Wars by that point. The new producer, Howard Kazanjian, talked him into returning, though. The ending of Return of the Jedi was actually originally going to be more sugar-coated than what we got. It was actually going to end with Obi-Wan and Anakin full-on coming back to life in the flesh, and then joining the Ewok celebration with perfectly alive Han Solo and Yoda." Not sure where you got your info from, Lloyd, but since you don't even seem to know who Harrison Ford is, your whole diatribe is suspect. Return of the Jedi went through several story changes. The Ewok version originally reportedly ended with Luke embracing the dark side and claiming Vader's mask and positioning the Empire as his own. So, not very sugar-coated at all. Shout out to Lloyd Shanahan 154 for dropping a comment. And shout out to everybody who hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But I've had enough of this conversation and this movie. You can go now. Okay, then I'll leave.
Fully cinematic.